of the closing doors, please.
Welcome to Subway Sports Talk. My name is Peter Kennedy, and I am your host. Thank you so much, as always, for tuning into SST on Apple Podcasts app, Spotify, and on YouTube. Don't forget to subscribe, rate, and review the podcast on your podcast app, specifically Apple and Spotify, if that's where you listen. And on YouTube, don't forget to subscribe and hit the notification bell so you know when we drop new content. And today, we got a New York Minute for you guys. We got an episode where I'm going to talk to you about the New York Knicks and their playoff hopes and what they have to do and where their real hopes lie when it comes to this series that's going to be against the Cleveland Cavaliers, because there's a lot of talk. There's a lot of obvious things that make sense about what they need to do to take down this Cavs team. But I have a specific take on that front about where their strength lies and what they're going to have to do to overcome the team that's probably a little bit better on the high end with the Cleveland Cavaliers. They probably have the better player in Donovan Mitchell, or the best player in the series in Donovan Mitchell, but they got two in Randle, who's trying to get healthy, and Brunson, who's trying to stay healthy, who can attack and be right there neck and neck with the stars of Cleveland. However, I do want to mention the New York Mets just super duper quick, because this is a New York Minute right now, okay? The New York Mets off to a weird start. They had a good opening series against the Marlins, not so good against the Brewers so far. Home opener canceled on Thursday, even though it's beautiful out here in the greater New York area. But I just want to say that I'm not particularly worried about this team yet. The pitching and the home run ball has been a problem, to say the least. It has been really frustrating and weird to watch these games fly by and the Brewers just hit bomb after bomb after bomb. And there are concerns about this pitching staff, but there are also concerns about the hitting right now. My concerns with the hitting are not as strong as the ones with the pitching. I just got to put that out there. It's early in the season. We're 2 series in. There's a lot of reasons and a lot of time right now to be frustrated with this offense. There's a lot of reason to say this offense doesn't have it. They need another bat. Beatty's hurt. Is he going to come up? Vientos, does he have to come up? That stuff is not a concern to me yet. This lineup is good. They're showing flashes. They're showing signs. They're getting right. Nimmo, Marte, Lindor, Alonso, McNeil, to this point have been okay at best. Lindor and Alonso had a really good final game in Milwaukee. It wasn't enough because the pitching gave up more home runs. But if you're sitting here concerned about the New York Mets offense right now, I want you to take a step back and I want you to relax. There's a reason why this team is looked at nationally as a powerhouse of the MLB. They're looked at as a top 5, maybe 6, depending on where you look, as far as World Series odds. They're top 3 or 4 as far as National League odds to win the National League. All that being said, yes, there are places where we want them to be better, but you have to give this offense a little bit more time to get in their rhythm, to get that system down where the Nimmos and Martes are getting on base and making things happen and causing havoc on the base paths so Lindor and Alonso can drive them in. We saw a glimpse of it against Milwaukee in that final game, and we saw some of the power come to life with Pete Alonso. Is there still a concern that he's the only true power hitter on the team? Yes, there is. But for the regular season purposes of this argument, it's not a huge concern to me. This team is not going to struggle to put up 4 to 6 runs night in, night out. On the pitching front, Max Scherzer had a really rough game. He gave up a couple bombs. He had a tough outing. We know that they're dealing with some depth issues right now with the rotation. Tyler McGill looked pretty good. You have to be pleased with what you saw from Kodai Senga, and Verlander's going to be back relatively soon. I think the rotation will work itself out. I think Scherzer will be better moving forward. I think Kodai Senga is going to have a really good first half. I think he's going to keep people all on their toes and uncomfortable in the box with that ghost fork. That ball is nasty. His arm action is nasty. If you spent some time watching Kodai Senga in his first start, you have to walk away feeling pretty dang good about what he accomplished in start number 1. The real concern with this team is the bullpen. That is the number 1 concern here, because right now it hasn't been a good start for the bullpen. We know with the loss of Diaz that there's going to have to be a lifting of the tides, where a rising tide lifts all boats here, where they're not going to have one guy who's shut down. They're not going to have one guy who stands super tall above the rest. They're going to have to committee this thing, and I think they're going to be a little bit better. But my main point here with the New York Mets, I'm going to get into the Knicks here in a second, is that we need to just relax a little bit. We need to let this play out. We need to see at least a month of baseball before we jump to conclusions that this offense is no good, that this pitching staff's going to be bad all year, because there's too much talent on this team to be truly that concerned. It's been weird. It's been frustrating to watch this team so far, especially in that Milwaukee series. But this early in the season, playing the one game results is too easy. It's something that is just not going to be fruitful for you in the long haul as a fan, as a person who writes about this sport, talks about this sport, analyzes.
And clear.
That was an accident. I hit a button. I didn't even mean to do that, but that's okay. The Mets are going to be fine. The Mets are going to win games. There's some sense of panic out there where talking heads are saying that they're actually going to be struggling to be as good as we expected. I'm not there yet. This team needs a little time to click offensively, and that's going to happen. That's the least of my worries. The starting rotation is going to be a little bit better. Peterson struggled, but McGill's looked good. Senga's looked good. I have no worries about Scherzer being better as the season moves on. And then those 4 and 5 spots with Carrasco, and then Verlander comes back. All of a sudden, those quality starts start rolling through, and this team starts winning games 6-3 instead of losing games 6-5. Right? These things are going to start falling into place, and I'm not worried about the New York Mets. Let's move on to the New York Minute about the New York Knicks, because this team is a little more positive right now when it comes down to it, because we're talking about a team that is truly the 5 seed in the Eastern Conference, a seeding in which I thought was going to be lofty expectations for this team going into the season. And I know as the season moves on, a lot of people don't care about preseason expectations. A lot of people don't care about what the expectations were in December and January. But since that point in December, January, this team's been bona fide good, if not better than good, right? This team has been clicking on many cylinders. They're working with depth. Brunson and Randle are obviously the stars that we thought we may have and actually do have. We know what Randle and Brunson have done. Randle right now for the season, 25 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists. Jalen Brunson, a guy who I expected his stat line to look like 18, 6, and 4, is actually 24, 6, and 3.5. His scoring has been elite, but you have to then talk about some other stuff. Because when you think about the Knicks matchup here with the Cleveland Cavs in specificity, you think about a team with star power, with a big 4 of players over in Cleveland that's really good. Donovan Mitchell's an all-star and all-NBA level talent. Darius Garland's an all-star player in his own right, who is probably not all-NBA guy, but we know damn well he's a problem to deal with and a great player. Mobley and Allen are probably 2 of the best defensive paired combos in the whole NBA, right there with Giannis and Brook Lopez, right there with the best defensive units in the NBA. We know where their strengths lie. We know it's in the starting lineup. We know it's in the big 4. We know it's in Donovan Mitchell scoring 30 points a night, who we've seen him in playoffs do exactly that. With that being said, we've seen Donovan Mitchell in the playoffs be that great scorer and his team come up short. We've seen it before with the Utah Jazz, where Mitchell's unstoppable and the team is stoppable. That's the thing that the Knicks are going to have to key in on. And when it comes down to the strength for the New York Knicks, of course, you're going to think about how Brunson and Barrett match up with Garland and Mitchell, how Randle can match up against Mobley and Allen as the defense tightens up, as the game slows down. Will he struggle like he did in that Atlanta series 2 years ago? And there's a chance he does struggle a little bit. There's a chance that he's not as efficient as he's been all season. There's a chance that he has one of those games where he's 8 of 28 and only scores 18 points, right? Those are possibilities. With the way the Cavaliers play defense, with the way those 2 bigs in Mobley and Allen play, it's not going to be a walk in the park for Julius Randle. And I think that's okay. I think people obviously are expecting a lot out of him and look at him as the linchpin to success for the New York Knicks. Same thing with Brunson. We've seen Brunson in the playoffs. He averaged over 25 points in the first round of the playoffs, where Luka Doncic missed the first 3 games of that series. He put the team on his back. He can do it. He can hang with Donovan Mitchell. He can hang with Darius Garland. But with all things considered, if we think Randle, Barrett, Mitch, Brunson, and whoever else you want to throw into that mix, whether it be Quentin Grimes or Josh Hart, They can hang with this starting five of the Cleveland Cavaliers, and that is all they have to do. Here's why. If the Knicks starting lineup plays, stride for stride with the Cleveland Cavaliers starting lineup, even maybe a little bit behind. If the Cavs starters outpace the Knicks starters just by a little bit, we're still in good shape because the New York Knicks strength is a strength in numbers. That is where this team makes their money. And it was no better highlighted than the game on Wednesday night against the Indiana Pacers, where Brunson was out, Barrett was out, and Julius Randle was out. We think about some of the greatest teams of all time, and you often think about stars. You think about the early Golden State Warriors runs before Kevin Durant, and you think about Steph Curry and Klay Thompson and their elite shooting and their scoring numbers that are unmatched across the league. But where they actually won those series, where they actually won those 72 games in the regular season, where they put the hurt on people in the playoffs, was not just from the spectacular shooting of Steph Curry and Klay Thompson. It was the bench play from David West, Leandro Barbosa, and the other guys, Andre Iguodala, who did a lot of stuff and a lot of positive things on the court on both sides of the floor, offense and defense. Their whole thing was strength in numbers. And to think about that statement is kind of crazy to remember, right? Because you think about who they were and what their biggest strengths were. And instantly you think about Steph Curry shooting, you think about Klay Thompson shooting, you think about Draymond Green's defense. Those are the three things you think about. But their own team, their own fan base, their own coach highlighted the strength in numbers over everything. That is the Knicks' ticket to success in this playoffs. If you look at how Emmanuel Quickley has grown in this season, if you look at the impact that Josh Hart has had on this team, if you look at the full-fledged ability of Quentin Grimes being way more than a 3-and-D guy, a guy who can put the ball on the ground and get to the rim, make elite level passes on the break, a guy who can dunk on some folks, a guy who can finish around the rim, and the person who can shoot the lights out, Quentin Grimes is a person who can make a difference in this playoff series. Obi Toppin, since the Randle injury took place, has been great. His shooting is really clicking right now. His defense is great. Great, it might be a little bit strong, but it's good. It's better than it was in years past. And most importantly, he's one of the few guys on this Knicks team who gets out in transition and finishes with authority. Hart and Brunson and Grimes and Quickley and even Randle, they can get out. Barrett, they can get out. When you have a guy like Obi Toppin coming in to clean fast breaks up, to clean cuts up off the pick and roll, off backdoor movement, whatever it may be, Toppin has been great in that facet. And it's something that we didn't know we had in the bag as Knicks fans. You looked at this team in January and February, it was all about Brunson, all about Randle, a little bit about Barrett and some of his struggles, perhaps. But where this team really makes their money is in the bench, in those secondary players, in that second unit that comes in and dominates other teams. The Cleveland Cavaliers are good. They're very good. They're closer to the Sixers than the Knicks are. They're closer to the Bucks and the Celtics than the Knicks are. But they're also much closer to the tier of the Knicks than they are those other squads, which allows the Knicks a chance here to have a serious opportunity to take them down in a playoff series. If I had to guess who would be favored in that series, it will be the Cleveland Cavaliers. Maybe they'll be minus 150, minus 160 to win the series. And I think that's probably accurate. I think that's probably perfectly accurate, actually. The Knicks will probably be about 140 plus 130, 140 range-ish, plus 125 perhaps. And that's the value that the Knicks need right now. Because yes, their top four is great. But then you get down to Karis LeVert, Cedi Osman. They don't have Kevin Love anymore. Isaac Okoro, who starts for them, Lamar Stevens, Ricky Rubio. These are decent players. These are all right guys. These are guys who are normal type bench pieces. Normal type. What the Knicks have in that favor is not normal type bench pieces. They have bench pieces who could be starters. And they've proven it time in and time out when Brunson goes down, when Barrett's not starting, now with Randle out. These moments have been elite for these guys. I mean, to have a game this late in the season where Brunson, Barrett, and Randle are all out, and your young kids, your Quickley, Grimes, and Toppin all go for 30 plus, that is something that we did not know was in the bag. And you got to start with Emmanuel quickly. This is a guy who's in the sixth man of the year conversation. He might very well win it. This is a guy who, if he was starting for the New York Knicks and playing Jalen Brunson level minutes every night, 33, 35, 36 minutes a game, he would be averaging 20 points a game almost, right? His shooting has become fantastic, microwave level. His playmaking has only grown. He's up to 3.5 assists on the year. And his floater game, his driving game, his playmaking ability has grown with every step of the way throughout this season. I mean, he's a guy who, even when Brunson and Randle are in, they look at IQ and say, hey, we need a bucket. We need a play. We need a good shot. Go get one. He does that. And Quentin Grimes, I've been on this point all year. A lot of people just want to tag him as a 3-and-D guy. That's who he is, and that's what he's going to be. I've seen more from him this year that's going to make him way more than that. He can be a third or fourth starter on a team and be elite in that role. He's still a little bit wet behind the ears. He's still a little bit far from the idea of being a star level player. But when he puts the ball on the floor and attacks the rim, he's finding Mitch Robinson. He's finding Julius Randle. He's finding Hartenstein. He's making dump offs. He's making passes to the corner with both hands. These are unique passes. These are not easy passes. I put out a tweet a while ago about Quentin Grimes. This was maybe in January or February, where I said, hey, everyone's talking about Grimes as a 3-and-D. Why is he not looked at as somebody who can be 80% of Devin Booker? And you know, when you put out the word Devin Booker, you put out the player comp of Devin Booker, your instant reaction is, yo, relax there, guy. Devin Booker is a bona fide stud, an all-NBA player, an every-year all-star, one of the best scorers we have in the NBA. Quentin Grimes has some of those abilities. And if you think back to Devin Booker's early part of his career, you know, everyone looked at him as a shooter. He's a guy who shoots. He was more than that. He always was. Even at Kentucky, he was a sixth man who just came in and got some shots up and hit them. Guess what? He's way more than that. He was an elbow extended guy. His three ball is actually not his strength. It's just part of his game. He's about finding spots, finding opportunities to attack, getting to the rim, and then passing out of those plays. Quentin Grimes is a lot more like that than he is a spot up 3-and-D straight up shooter. He can do that stuff. Where he actually differentiates himself is when he puts the ball on the ground and attacks. I'm not saying Quentin Grimes is going to go out here and score 20 points a game in the playoffs. But if there's a game where Randle's getting locked down, where Brunson's kind of doing his thing, but maybe he only has 20 points, I have confidence that Quickly and Grimes can put up 15 to 22 points each. And that is the elite strength that the Knicks have to take advantage of. They have to lean on to beat this Cavs team in a series. You might go into a game with the Cavs in the first quarter and their starting lineup is clicking and Mitchell's hitting big shots. He's hitting step backs. He's attacking the rim. He's getting to the free throw line. And at the end of one, they might be up 6 points. They might be up 7 points. But when Mitchell goes to the bench, when Garland goes to the bench, can Quickly take advantage? Can Grimes take advantage? Can Josh Hart wreak havoc and do what he does best? That's the Knicks' strength right here. The real key to success, the real key to beating the Cavaliers is to have the stars about be even. That's all they need to do. Brunson doesn't need to outshine. Randle doesn't need to drop 40. They need to hang tough. They need to put up their points and get their stats. But what they have to do is make sure that the others, the strength in numbers, come to fruition. Because in the end of the day, with this series, we know the top 10 players in this series, I shouldn't say top 10, the top 7 players in this series, maybe 4 of them are Cavs. And that is a point in their favor. But 10 guys play at a time, and about combined 16 guys will play in total in each game. Out of those 16, I think the Knicks have 9. And the Cavs just have their 4 or 5. And that's how they win this series. So I'm looking at Quickly. I'm looking at Grimes. I'm looking at Hart. I'm looking at Toppin. Because when it comes down to it, if Brunson and Mitchell are a wash, Brunson and Garland are a wash, Randle's a wash with the rest, they win with the rest. They win with Quickly. and Grimes and Hart. That won't be enough to beat the Bucks. That won't be enough to beat the Celtics. Maybe not even enough to beat the Sixers. But with this Cleveland Cavaliers bunch, it takes elite level defensive effort to make their life difficult. And the numbers that the Knicks have in their favor with having 7 or 8 guys that they trust can go out there and play 20 minutes and play hard defense and put the ball in the hoop and get each other involved. That's how they overcome the Cavaliers in the first round. If I were a betting man, which I am, I think the value's in the Knicks to win that series at plus 130. I think the value's trusting that the Knicks are a better team overall and a deeper team overall than the Cleveland Cavaliers. Mitchell might damn well average 35. Garland might damn well average 19 and 10. But if Quickly averages 16 and Grimes averages 12 and Toppin has 2 or 3 games and Barrett has 2 or 3 games, then the Brunson and Randle of it all do not have to average 40. They don't have to go for 38. It will be nice. And maybe they'll do it once or twice. But this Knicks series gets won if the others do their job, if the strength in numbers prevail. You always think about the best teams in the league and you think about the big 2, the big 3, the dynamic duo. That's not where the Knicks are at. As great as Brunson and Randle have been, as many All-NBA votes as they might get, the ticket to winning is the rest of the guys. It's the strength in numbers. That's my take on the New York Knicks. As we get closer to the playoffs, we're going to talk so much more about the NBA playoffs. I can't wait. Next week, we'll do a big preview of the playoffs at large. We'll talk about the Knicks. We'll talk about the Nets. We obviously have Mets and Yankees things to touch on as time moves on here. But to me, this is just such an important aspect to this series. And there's been no better reason to feel it right here, right now than these guys stepping up as injuries have riddled this team over the past month. As Randall's missed a couple, as Brunson's missed more than a couple, as Barrett's now missed a couple, and they haven't missed a beat. And they haven't slowed down an inch because they understand their roles. They play really hard defense. They get out in transition when they can. They make life hard for opposing stars. And if it ain't Randle, because he's off, it's Brunson. If it ain't Brunson, it's Quickly and Grimes. And that's the ticket. That's the way they win a first-round series. And lastly, we talk about success. We talk about what is the barometer for what they have to accomplish to make this season a success. I want to caveat this, and I want to make sure this is clear. The regular season is a win already. It's done. 5 seed locked in. Playoff berth locked in. The regular season is a success. The regular season is a win. Now, the new season starts as the playoffs tip off. What is success for the New York Knicks in the playoffs? If they do not win this series, they must get to 6 games. If they don't get to 6 games and lose this series, I could easily say that this season was a failure. Now, it does depend. I'm going to be nuanced here, guys. That's what I do. If you listen to the show, you know that I'm not going to make blanket statements. I'm not going to say that this is automatically a failure, automatically a success based off of just one result. If they play 5 games and they lose by a combined 7 points in 5 games, listen, that's different from getting a gentleman's sweep where they stood no chance and they lost by 10 3 times out of 5 or 4, right? But to measure the success properly, they need to compete here. They can't have an Atlanta Hawks level performance because that'll just cause a tizzy in New York City. And Randall's on the hot seat, and Brunson is going to be looked at as a guy who maybe we thought he was this guy during the regular season, and he's not in the postseason. I don't expect that to happen because we saw him do it last year. We saw him be the best player on a team that won a first round. He was the best player on a team that won a first-round playoff series in the Western Conference last year. We think he can do it. Randle, we don't know. The ruling is out. And it could be detrimental to his New York City career and life if he comes out with another dud like he did in Atlanta a couple of years back. But he can be saved by those others. He can be saved by Quickly Grimes and Barrett and Toppin and Hartenstein and Hart. That can happen, and that's okay. If they win this series, boom, icing on the cake. This playoff is a success. What happens to the next round when they take on the Milwaukee Bucks? Listen, they're the best team in the East. They might be the best team in the whole NBA. That's icing on the cake. If they win a series, if they beat the Cavs in a series, this is a win of a year. Overall, book closed, no questions asked. If they go 6 or 7 and compete and show up and play tight games down the stretch and almost get over that hump, I'm still looking at this as a positive outcome in the playoffs. I don't want to hear this blanket statement. If they don't beat the Cavs, this is a failure of a season. That's bogus to me. This team has made incredible strides. And if you're going to poo-poo that because they lost to a team that has 4 better starters than them, that's on you. That ain't on the Knicks. This team's going in the right direction. This team has assets. This team has a base that we should all be proud of as fans. So if you want to make that blanket statement, that's up to you. I'm not doing that. I'm not doing that. I want to see this team compete hard. I want to see this team play close games. I want to see this team win the series, of course. But if they go 6 or 7 in a tightly contested series and play well, and we see some positives from Julius Randle and RJ Barrett, and then, of course, Jalen Brunson, that's great. If I see Quickly and Grimes and Hart be overwhelmed and overshadowed and look like crap in this playoff series, that also looks at it as an L to me, because this is a proof of concept playoff series for us. This is a test to the rest of the league. This is an audition to the rest of the league for the New York Knicks. If they show up and not just Brunson plays well, if they have a bunch of guys play well and their bench looks good, that next star who's frustrated, that next star who's looking for a new squad, that next star who wants a better situation for himself is going to actually consider the New York Knicks, not because they play at the most famous arena in the world, not because Madison Square Garden is fun, not because the fans are loud, not because we get good chants and good social media content after a playoff win. It comes because the proof of concept as this team shows itself as an actual contender level player. So that's all I got. New York Knicks, competition against the Cleveland Cavaliers. They may win this series. I like the bet if you pick them. I like that bet. Plus 130, sign me up. And I think Quickly and Grimes and Hart are the key to success, because strength in numbers is where the New York Knicks beat the Cleveland Cavaliers. Subway Sports Talk. My name is Pete Kennedy. Thank you so much for listening. We got more content for you coming next week. Apologies for being a little bit late on this week's episode. Had a bit of a crazy week, but we're here and we'll be back again to talk more NBA, more MLB, more Mets, more Yankees, more Knicks, more NBA playoffs. I cannot wait. We're going into one of my favorite points of this sports calendar. I love the NBA playoffs, man. And this season is going to be so damn exciting. The West is going to be chaos. The East is going to have incredible second round matchups, if not some good first ones. I'm pumped. I hope you are too. Subway Sports Talk. Subscribe, rate, and review on your podcast apps. Subscribe, notification bell on YouTube. And we will talk to you next week. Cheers.